Okay, so welcome back to an architecture tour of Morrowind. I am Simon, and when we last left off, we were in Saint-Denis, this little village here. And our next destination is Balmora. So let's take the Silt Strider, this giant bug thing with a hole hollowed out of its back. Yes, why walk when you can ride? So, Balmora. Now, Balmora is
Where would you like to go?
I guess it's the main town of House Hlaalu. Hlaalu? I don't even know how to pronounce that. Let's reduce that for a bit. It's the guide to Balmora. So this is the town, and we saw the map earlier. There's a river running through the middle of it, some buildings on either side. Balmora is the district seat of House... How do you pronounce that? Hlaalu? Hlaalu? And the largest settlement in Vardenfor after Vivek City. Balmora's 4 districts are Hightown, the Commercial District, Labour Town, and Fort Moon Moss. Hightown on the hill to the west has the Tribunal Temple, Hlaalu Council Hall, Rich Manors, Better Shops, and the Morantong Guild. Morantong is the Assassin's Guild, so they kill people. The Commercial District just west of the river is centered on the large plaza north of Southgate, with the Strider Port along the south wall east of the South Gate. Or east of okay. Strider Port, yep. The Fighters Guild and Mages Guild and most Balmora shops and inns are located along the streets of the Commercial District's Labour Town east of the river. Where the commoners and poor live has several modest corner clubs and a few merchants. There are no merchants. Anyway, Fort Moonmoth, a long walk southeast of town, houses the Legion garrison and the Imperial cult. So, nope, none of the other stuff is important to the architecture. So, what do we say? We see, so they call this the High Town, which includes a temple up here. And that's the Council Manor. And then there's the Commercial District, which is this stuff. So you see a bookseller, armorer, outfitter. That house is not there in the original game. It's a mod, but it serves as a player house. Pawnbroker, Lucky Lockup. That's like a tavern. Council Club. That's another tavern. Trader. So that's the Commercial District with the Mages Guild and Fighters Guild. And then apparently here is what do they call it? Where the commoners live. So all the ordinary people. They call it Labour Town, okay. Well, let's go have a look at all of this stuff. We are at the Silt Strider port at the south. So the Commercial District looks like that. So just shops around an empty space. And then up here is Hightown with manors, apparently. So most of these houses are 2-story. And they are more or less standalone houses, and they look a little bit like fortresses, interestingly. And then some expensive shops behind here. The temple is that, with the dome on top. We might want to remember the dome. And then down here, these are shops as well, so I guess this is also the Commercial District. But as we go down another level, I guess Labour Town is over there, but I think this is included as well. Like these houses. So as you can see, these are not quite as impressive as the ones at the top, although, you know, to be honest, they look fairly similar. Just, you know, without the extra bit on top. So although they call it the commoners and labourers, I mean, in terms of the exterior appearance of the architecture, it doesn't actually look that different between the rich and the poor. Now compare that to, say, the Neen, where the imperial architecture was very different from the shacks on the other side of the town. So I guess, I mean, what can we say about that? We can say that maybe this town is a bit more homogeneous, whereas in, say, the Neen there was a greater tension between the Imperials and the locals.
Is there something I can do for you?
Here it seems like everything fits together in the same style. Now, let's look at the map. So, I mean, in terms of the urban form, in terms of the just what the town looks like, we have, you know, two groups here, and they're surrounding an open area, and so it's quite obvious that these are distinct groups. And of course, this is the high town. This is where all the councillors of the Hlaalu council live around here. Although there are others in other cities as well, but in Balmora they're here. This is where the shops are. And then down here are the commoners. Now, you see how these are kind of arranged in a group, and that's arranged in a group, whereas this is arranged in rows. And when you do that, I mean, I don't know if this is a bit too much, but you know, when you have parallel lines or, you know, or grids, I guess there's not much of a grid here, but when you have parallel lines like this, it suggests colonialism, it suggests expansionism, and it suggests egalitarianism. Now, why do I say that? Well, expansionism, because, you know, when you're in a closed group like this, if you add another house somewhere, you can't add it to the group. So once you have the group, it's really difficult to add any more to it and have it fit in the same pattern. But if you have parallel lines like this, you can just keep adding more and more houses along the line, and it will maintain the same pattern. And so when you have parallel lines or grids, then you can just keep expanding forever, or the idea of it is so you can keep expanding forever and not disrupt the pattern. Whereas this is very closed, this is potentially open in terms of the potential for expansion. Egalitarianism, because, well, you know, one house is not so different from another. I mean, if you say you want to find a person, like no one house is more important than the other. When you do this, you know, when you arrange them into parallel lines like this, whereas, you know, in a situation like this, you might say that, well, maybe that building is more important because, you know, it faces here, whereas these are maybe less important because they don't face the open space, or, you know, here the council manor, that's the most important building and the others are arranged around it. I guess not so much here. I guess the entire town is, oops, like the Hlaalu don't focus very much on hierarchy. They are, I think I have a book to read, or maybe I should, Great House of Morrowind. So there are 5 great houses: Hlaalu, Redoran, Telvanni, Indoro, and Driz. But only Hlaalu, Redoran, and Telvanni are actually in Morrowind, or they're actually in Vvardenfell. The other 2 are not really represented in this game, but blah 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 blah. So it's a close relationship with the Imperial administration. House Hlaalu has emerged as politically and economically dominant among the great houses of Vvardenfell and Morrowind. They welcome imperial culture and law, imperial allegiance and bureaucracy, and imperial freedom of trade and religion. So, free trade, free religion, and they are supportive of integration with the empire. I mean, they still honor the old Dunmer ways, the ancestors' temple and the noble houses, but has readily adapted to the rapid pace of change and progress in the imperial provinces. Unlike the other great houses, which are largely hostile to non-Dunmer, House Hlaalu aspires to live in peace and harmony with the other races, to share in the growth and prosperity of the empire. Public buildings, trade houses, and crafts guilds are designed as simple, multi-story buildings, roughly rectangular in plan, featuring arched entranceways and modest decorated exteriors. More modest one-story private dwellings follow the same plan except with less decoration. So, their culture is one of relative egalitarianism. Like they believe in free religion and free trade. And you can see it in the architecture. Like even though the nobles live higher up and they have slightly bigger buildings, they're not that different, as I mentioned before. And all of these structures are fairly modest. Let's go into one of these shops. So if you come in here, it's fairly functional. You have the structure and you have a few tapestries, but they're fairly plain and not very special. And so they're not really showing off much of their wealth. And we can go into one of the manors, I guess, to compare. Anyway, so that's, I guess that's one of the things about this game that I really like, is the fact that the architecture reflects that one's locked, reflects the culture and the backstory in the game. So because these people believe in equal trade or equal rights and free trade and so then the urban design of their town reflects that, and also the architecture reflects that. See how this is a noble's house. The ceiling is higher. I guess the structure is a bit more elaborate, but still it's fairly plain. This is not. It's not very decorative. There's a few rugs, but that's locked. And I guess this is only the second town that we visited. Maybe as we get to the other places in the game, then you'll see more of the contrast with the other great houses and their philosophies and their and their culture, and how that's reflected in their cities. So as you look across the river, they're all equal.
So good to see.
Yes, it's good to see you too. It's all equal. They're all roughly the same. None of them are privileged over any of the others. Those are guard towers. Actually, no, that's not a guard tower. That's a guard tower. So in terms of the ordinary people, they're not. They're all treated equally. Well, that's what the architecture would suggest. And I guess in a way that is most similar to what we believe in the modern world and in the developed countries in the real world. We believe in equal rights and we believe in equal opportunity. So this is, I guess, progressive, and then they're willing to adapt and adjust to the empire, and they're not trying to separate themselves from the empire. They're not trying to resist the change that the empire is bringing. Anyway, let's go to the last bit described in the guide to Balmora, which is the Imperial Fort. I don't know if I'll do a little bit of this, but I guess it'll serve as an introduction. So, close to every large city, I think, and I don't remember. Yeah, close to every large city there would be an Imperial Fort. So this is, I guess, a fairly long way from the town actually. But this is basically the Imperial Barracks. The soldiers are garrisoned here. As you can see, they're wandering around not doing anything. And what to say about the garrison? They don't do very much. And in a way, this is the Imperial presence. They build their castle and they put their soldiers here, and I guess that keeps things. It keeps the people in line. If they threaten to rebel, then they would go and kick some ass, I guess, or try to. So this is a different architectural style, as you can see. This is back to the Imperial style. Somewhat like medieval Europe. It's a castle. and not too much to say about that. Okay, so that's Balmora. I hope I didn't go through that too quickly. But yeah, so the main point is the architecture reflects the culture of the people. And that's something that's, you know, if you've studied architecture, or if you're interested in architecture, or you're interested in storytelling in games and how the design of the levels in the game reflect the story being told, then this is quite important, you know, to understand how architecture might go hand in hand with the story you're trying to tell. And in this case, as you can see, it's a town of, yeah, this is the Hlaalu town. Next up, I guess we'll go to Old Ruin, and that will be in the next video. See you in a bit.